This year, the Grantstown Wesley Methodist Church celebrates 182 continuous years as a place of Christian worship, fellowship, service, and outreach.
How did it all begin, you may ask? Well, come with me and let's travel back in time to the year 1839. It was in 1839. Grantstown was a community settled by freed African slaves just south of downtown Nassau. It was a thriving town of approximately 500 persons, a tight-knit community of hard-working men and women, many of whom had a hunger for God. By the early 1800s, quite a number of Grantstown residents had embraced Methodism, which had been introduced to them by Joseph Paul, a former slave from South Carolina who became a passionate preacher. These early Methodists of Grantstown gathered in homes to worship, and the records tell of British missionary Charles Penny leading weekly services in the home of a devout local Christian by the name of Brother Ward. As their numbers grew, members took the step to build a house of worship. Wesley Chapel, a small wooden building, was constructed on the site where the Grantstown Wesley Methodist Church stands today. Construction of the chapel was completed in 1839. As the population of the community of Grantstown grew, the membership of Wesley steadily increased. The history of Wesley is one of continual progress and improvement. In 1870, a stone Gothic chapel was completed to replace the original wooden chapel. In 1926, a devastating hurricane struck and Wesley Methodist Church was completely destroyed. Fortunately, the church's schoolhouse across the street was spared and services were held there until the sanctuary was restored in 1929. Fate would have it that same year another hurricane struck, this time flattening the church's schoolhouse. In time, it would be rebuilt and has come to be affectionately known as Wesley Hall. By 1937, the congregation was large enough to require the services of a full-time pastor, a post to which was appointed Reverend George Malbert Russell, who was succeeded by Reverend William T. Makepeace. As minister in charge of Wesley for 20 years, from 1937 to 1957, Reverend Makepeace oversaw the formation of a number of church organizations, namely the Women's League, 1938, the First Bahamas Nassau Company of the Boys Brigade, 1943, the First Bahamas Company of Boys Brigade led by Captain Simpson C. Penn for almost 50 years, the Girls Brigade, 1945, the Girl Guides, 1948, and Men's Cheerio, 1948. In 1958, the helm of the church was assumed by the first person of African descent, Reverend Edwin Taylor from Barbados, who was a trailblazer and under whose leadership the church made significant strides. In 1958, the Crusaders came into being and Wesley celebrated the birth of its first offspring, Rhodes Memorial Methodist Church. In 1962, Wesley underwent extensive renovations and an annex was added to the church hall. In 1963, members of the congregation formed St. Michael's Methodist Church. Curry Memorial Methodist Church also owes its beginnings to the Grantstown Wesley Society, as does Ascension Methodist Church. Grantstown Wesley joins 37 churches in 13 islands of the Bahamas, which make up the Bahamas Conference of the Methodist Church. It is a self-governing conference which came into being in July 1993. Today, Wesley strives to meet the needs of his congregation and the wider community in a holistic fashion. Wesley is blessed with a faithful service of prayer and Bible study groups, visitation teams, men's and ladies fellowship, Sunday worship services, junior church, boys brigade, girl guides, Kingdom Princesses program, the Wesley and Jubilee bell ringers, sanctuary choir, youth and young adults choir, children's choir, dance troupe, Wesley band, wind ensemble, and the usher board. Wesley hosts a weekly radio program, Grantstown Wesley Speaks. The church also operates a weekly soup kitchen and provides pastoral care and counseling services. Ministers serving the church over the years include the Reverend John Sims, William Ross, Peter Howard, Paul Waterfield, Kenneth Huggins, Dennis Magnus, Nymphas Edwards, Patterson Dean, Carl Campbell, Colin Archer, Frederick Kelly, and Reverend Carla Culmer, under whose leadership extensive renovations to the church were made. Reverend Lester Ferguson is the church's current minister.
The theme for our church's 182nd anniversary is Living by Faith and Love, Advancing God's Kingdom. This theme is based on a part of Galatians chapter 2 verse 20, which says, and I quote, "I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me." And Matthew chapter 6 verse 10, which says, "Your kingdom come," end quote. Our theme reminds us that in the uncertainty and difficulties of a COVID-19 world, our faith in God will sustain us, and God's love for us will see us through. Our theme also reminds us that God has given us some things. No, God has given us most things. No, God has given us everything that we need to make His kingdom of love, joy, peace, and hope a reality right here on earth. My brothers and sisters, we are all kingdom builders.
As we celebrate our past, we also make a fresh commitment to continue our mission of spreading the good news of the gospel and sharing the love of Jesus Christ. To God be the glory, great things He has done.